Before we get to the main video, I just wanted to kind of go over what these podcast/interview episodes are going to be. This is something that I've been wanting to talk to some veterans about for a long time, about how disabled veterans that don't have major disabilities, i.e. missing limbs or bullet holes or purple hearts. Let me preface this with saying I'm not trying to take away from those men and women that have those things. They deserve all the praise. But a lot of young adults that get out of the military that are in their 20s and early 30s get out and can't do the things that they used to anymore. And it's very hard on a person going through that doesn't have any outward facing disabilities that are super prevalent and noticeable by others to deal with that. Because of that, a lot of the veterans dealing with these disabilities have a problem with depression as is, and then this kind of adds to that, not being able to do the things that they used to, like hobbies, snowmobiling, snowboarding, dirt biking, trail biking, active workouts, stuff like that, active hobbies that they have kind of get put on the back burner because their body hurts. Another thing I see is a lot of friends that don't understand kind of the disability and struggling with that were never in the military. It doesn't make sense for people that weren't in the military why a 20-something-year-old, early 30s can't do the things that all the other guys their age can. And that can be very hard on individuals that have those disabilities because they are seen as less, or because they're not being seen for what they have. I've struggled with this with work. I've struggled with this with friendships. I can sometimes do things and sometimes I just can't. I just had shoulder surgery a few months ago at 28 years old. I didn't think that was something that I would have to go through. I have struggles with doing some of my hobbies like snowboarding and snowmobiling. It's very taxing on your body, and it definitely shows when I go through those things. So I just want to bring light to that, and thank you for watching. Off to the video.
All right, we are rolling. So I'm just going to do a quick little what we're talking about, and then we'll get into your introduction and kind of talking about what you do now, what you used to do in the military, and what you did before even. So this podcast is going to be a little bit about, podcast. This is more of like just bros talking, But this is going to be about military personnel dealing with small disabilities after they get out of the military, right? Because some disabilities might seem small.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
All right. Quint, would you like to give us a little rundown of your, just who you are, what you do, what you did in the military, and anything you'd like to add to that?
First off, thanks for me being your first person
Popping my cherry.
to interview. Yeah, I love it. And I'm a fellow short king like you. So I'll
Short Kings Unite.
Yes. No, I just a kid growing up. I was into a lot of different things growing up. Pretty wild adolescent youth in my younger years, and then you just kind of start realizing you need to become an adult after you graduate high school and join the army. And kind of going back a little bit, always wanted to be a cop. Just was
Something that was always in your heart.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't remember that aha moment, but I do remember that growing up with my old man and my dad, TJ Hooker, Magnum PI, Chips.
Yep.
Simon and Simon. Gosh, what other ones were there? Kit. What was
Knight
it?
Rider.
Knight Rider.
Yep.
So growing up, like, I just remember watching those types of shows and being like, that is the life right there, man. That's what I want to do. And I think it's internal. Like, if you that kind of like good versus evil, you catch bad guys. You start at a young age doing that kind of thing, cops and robbers, all that kind of cowboys and Indians, all that stuff. So I always wanted to be a cop, and I thought, hey, if I go in the military, because I hate school.
Yeah.
If I go in the military, then that will be my way in. And so I used but at the same time, I thought, you know what? If I really like the military, I'll stay in and I'll do 20.
Yeah.
But so like I said, immediately following high school, I went into the military. I joined the Army. I did a 3-year active duty enlistment. I was a combat engineer. I was stationed in Fort Lewis, 25th ID, 65th Engineer Bat. We were all the Light Fighter Brigade, which doesn't exist anymore. Maybe at a Schofield, but they disbanded us and made us 73rd Engineers, the Stryker Brigade, out of 25th ID when I was actually ETSing out of there. So I never even got to see the vehicles, the Stryker vehicles being delivered, but never even got to train in them.
Not ever got to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but before that, man, I mean, we were just, I was essentially just I'll irritate infantrymen, but I was just a grunt with explosives.
We're fighting
There's a platoon of infantry guys, and there was a squad of us with them, and we did all their breaching and everything for them. So I mean, we're glorified grunt, but not a grunt.
Well, they'll get a kick out of that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I did that for 3 years. I went to air assault school. I was an E4. I was a squad or a team leader, not a squad leader. I was a team leader. Didn't really enjoy it. I had some good supervisors and I had some really bad ones. And I think it was like 90% of my supervisors were just a wreck, multiple marriages, drinking all the time. Just really not nice people.
So you got to remember, half of them were still kids. When we were, we're young and we look up to them because they got, a heavier collar, and you're like, dang, this guy's got to have it figured out. And you're like, oh, this dude's only 21, Yeah,
and until you even said it, when you're 8, I was 19. When you're 19, you look at them like they're 30, 40, but they're probably in their looking back on them, they're probably in their late 20s.
Exactly. Yeah, and they got multiple marriages under their belt, and it's wild.
Not happy. But yeah, so I, but at the same time, I learned a lot of how I didn't want to be towards other people.
Yeah.
If I were ever in that position, and I mean, they never got to know you personally. Like, they didn't know anything about you. They didn't know your kids' names. They never did anything with you outside of work. And I mean, maybe things have changed since then, but at least in that unit, when I was there, it was
very surface level.
It wasn't a pleasant experience. So I was like, this is not for me. I definitely don't want to do this for 20. And I had about a year left on my contract when 9/11 happened. And so because we're getting the Stryker vehicles, Rumsfeld came and we did the whole changing of the guard, and we couldn't deploy because we hadn't even, like I said, we were just getting the vehicle
yet.
Yeah. So the guys that I served with ended up deploying about roughly a year after I got out. And all pretty much all first round went to Iraq. And then when I got out, I immediately just started, putting in applications, got into law enforcement. That was, I swore in December of 2004, and I was a sheriff's deputy for approximately 6 years in Arizona. And then I met my wife when I got out, and we got married. Then I became a cop. She's always had a really good positive impact on my life. You got to have a good woman to
100%.
Kind of keep you stable, keep you in check, check your ego, call you out on your bullshit. And she always did that, really kept me in line from doing stupid shit. And then, she was from Oregon. She always wanted to come back up here, and she made my life hell until we did. So
that's what they're good at.
Lateral. Yeah. So lateraled up here in 2010 in Oregon, and I've been in law enforcement ever since. Done a lot of different things. I'm very proud of what I've done in my time. I actually like in a week, I'll have my 20-year anniversary in law enforcement.
That's awesome.
So, drones, narcotics, just anything and everything. I feel like I've got to touch and be a
At
part
least
of.
dip your toes in
And
there. Yeah.
yeah, super blessed and super proud of what I've accomplished. But at the same time, every accomplishment and everything that I've done good is because of God.
100%.
And I mean that wholeheartedly. I really feel like it's a calling, and that the Isaiah 6:8, who shall I send?
And me.
Send me. Here I am, Lord. Send me.
Yeah.
That's me, and I feel like I've embodied that throughout my life. And the only reason why I've been so successful in my career is because God puts things in my path, and I either choose to see him or not. And I've always chosen to keep my eyes open and say, "Hey, Lord, whatever you put in my path, I'm gonna do my job."
I'm
And
ready to
I'm
eat.
not
Let's
gonna
do it.
I'm not gonna put my blinders on. I'm not gonna be worried about getting home on time. I'm gonna do what when I wear the badge, I'm doing what you put me on this earth to do. And anything you put in my path, I'm gonna see, I'm gonna recognize, I'm not gonna ignore it, and I'm gonna do my job. And that is the only reason why I've been so successful, is because the good Lord's put things in my path, and I choose to see them, and not look the other way, and had a very, so far so good. I have a great career, been healthy, nothing bad's happened to me.
That's
So
awesome.
pretty blessed on that
Yeah.
aspect.
Thank God. God
Yeah.
is good, my friend. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then don't forget about your side biz. Let's hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I moved up to Oregon, I, and going to court a lot, you're switching out of you're taking off your duty belt and you're putting on like a plainclothes holster. And man, I was spending good money, good hard-earned money, putting my life on the line, earn money. And when I was buying these holsters, whatever garage guy was making them, at the time, back in, it was right around 2011. I was really upset because, I was like, man, this is junk and it's really uncomfortable. And I just thought, man, I could do this, and I could do a better job, because I know what I need. I know what I need. I know what's going to suit me in this profession. So, I invested a little money, or took a little money and invested in some equipment and started making holsters. And obviously, just like with anything, when you start out new, I made some stuff that if anybody has it out there, just throw it away, hit me up, and I'll replace it, because I don't ever want it to be seen by any person.
Fair.
But yeah, no. So I made some hideous holsters initially that I thought were cool, and yeah, they worked, but they were absolutely disgusting. And but yeah, over the years, I kept reinvesting and getting different equipment, and honing, my skill, and just really, and now I'm passionate about it. And initially, what I set out to like make something good and then make some good side income is like really turned into, now I get to hook up with people that I admire, my heroes, and hopefully, if they let me make them, awesome gear, and it makes me feel good, and I do like to make money at it
we
as
always
well,
like
because I have to.
that little side income.
Yeah, I have to make money to reinvest
100%.
and buy more and buy more materials. But man, I really, there's nothing better than people that I see that have done amazing things. Medal of Honor winners, Purple Heart recipients, and or just special forces guys, Ranger guys, regular forces, all of them. Like they all have some cool story, and if I happen to see it or I learn about them, I'm immediately hitting them up like, hey, let me make you something. It's on me, it's on the house, and let me do that, because in my mind, I know that if I ever see that guy, whether it be a post, social media, or whatever he's doing, if he's out at the range, Like most likely he's wearing something of mine that I made with my bare hands, and it makes me feel amazing. So it's like a guilty pleasure of mine.
And I mean, it's awesome to see your stuff out there. I've started to notice it now too. I see guys at the range and they're posting videos on Instagram, and I'm like, I know that logo right there. I've seen that before, and and that's how we met. I had a FN, or I have an FN 509T, and at the time, you're just jealous. Mine worked so much better than everybody else's.
Yeah, it's much better than a staccato one of these days.
But I reached out to you because I could not, I went from Sportsman's to Coastal and all over the place. Couldn't find a holster. And I hate waiting for online stuff, especially when I was just first getting into the game of pistols, because when I first got out, I was more of a rifle guy, a hunting rifle guy before I joined the military. Yeah. I was never really big into like tactical shooting until after the Marine Corps and during. And so when I got out, I'm a fresh guy that's fresh into all this, what light is this? What does this do? An extended, mag release or an extended slide release. I'm like, I don't know any of this crap. And so being able to hit you up and be like, hey, this is what I have. I don't know what I got. Can you make a holster for it? Because I can't find anything in town, and I'm not waiting to order something that I, wait 2 weeks for it, and it gets here and it's wrong, because I forgot that there was because mine's got raised sights and I got one for no raised sights or something like that. So that's how we met.
Yeah, that 509 has a monster front sight post.
That is a big boy. I can see it through my optic right now, which is it's nice in a optic failing situation. But
yes,
and I'm very grateful that we got to meet and build a relationship. We've done some work together, and I've seen some of the guys that you get to build those holsters for, some Purple Heart guys, and I think it's awesome what you do. And it's awesome to just, I'm not so much a part, but like just be adjacent to it is awesome to see the support and the love that you give to the veteran community. And that's kind of what we're doing here today. We're just trying to speak up for veterans. I got a lot of buddies here in town and obviously across the United States that I was in with, guys that was, I went to high school with that served, and everyone's got a different experience with the military. You pretty much ask any veteran and they say it was awesome, except for all of it sucked at the same time, and so
the guys were great. Everything else was
exactly.
Not fun.
The guys were awesome, but the entire machine of the military machine is just horrible. Politics and all that bullshit. Guys looking out for themselves, but that's for another video. What we want to talk about is, dealing with disabilities and your good experiences in the military, your bad experiences, how you may have hurt yourself and how you've seen that impact your life now and then. Because a lot of these disabilities that we get, somebody asks you, well, your knee's hurting, what'd you do? And you're like, I don't know. I probably rolled it, or tweaked it a couple times and just didn't notice. Or at the time I was so go fast that I didn't have time to slow down and check it out,
Yeah. I would say the major flaw with the military in general is that, I would go and I'll say, and obviously we kind of talked about this beforehand, but like there's no comparison to somebody that's lost a limb, that is suffering a traumatic brain injury, that has lost a part of themselves and has to deal with that day in and day out, been burned,
100%.
You name it, been blown up. Like like I said, it's a rug burn compared. What we deal with is like a rug burn compared to the day in and day out trauma that they deal with, and so like kind of talked about that we're not bitching and complaining about it, but it is some outside of that. there still are real life-changing problems that we have to kind of like
You have to adjust
change
to.
our life
Yeah.
around.
And that is 100%
And
true.
so,
We do not want to downplay the guys that have been through some serious shit. We support them. And if anybody is in that situation, they're free to reach out to me. And pretty much any veteran, obviously, we will always be there for each other. And we really don't want to downplay that. But we do want to kind of hit on the topic of the guys that struggle with these things,
yeah,
because without sounding like too much of a huge douchebag, guys that have physical, noticeable, like they walk in a room and you can see their injuries, it's a lot easier for them to get support, And with guys that have, obviously even TBIs are kind of in the same boat as the minor injuries, but a lot of them, you can't see
yeah,
those things, and those don't get noticed. Those don't, people forget about them. People, you go about your day and, you're at work or whatever, and you have a TBI or your knees are bad or whatever.
yeah.
People forget about that, and they don't think about it all the time. So
Yeah, and so where I think it started with me is that, I compacted my lower vertebrae, I bruised my Cossax, which is a tailbone, the fancy way of saying
yeah,
tailbone.
you just wanted to say something close to cock.
Yeah, exactly. I tore the tendon in my arm. I have cysts all over it. Um, I had a bone spur in my foot. Uh, you know, jacked up my neck with a picket pound, real cool story with a picket pounder, and slamming it on top of my Kevlar. Like all these little things, but over time, you're young and you're very
Yeah,
resilient, and things like kick back. So, but the other thing is that in my unit, all male MOS, it is extremely frowned upon. You don't want to be the sick call ranger. In the Army, it's
exactly.
called sick call ranger. So it was like, oh, I have a bone spur in my foot and I have to walk funny. I look stupid. But rain or shine, I'm at 0530 formation to go run 4
Yeah,
miles.
yeah. You don't really have an
It,
option. They make it to where it's not an option to go, because either you
I mean,
got PT scheduled
well,
during it, or you got work, or whatever.
well, yeah, I could go, but then I'm going to get that stigma of, you know, I'm a sick call ranger because I saw the other guys that were like the fat bodies, a little overweight. Because in the Army we had the A group, B group, and C group, and I was an A group. And that's the other thing is like, you don't want to be in B group and you don't want to be in C group. C group are all the fat bodies and that are, I don't know, they're running like an 8-minute mile. And shoot, in the civilian world,
That's
eight
pretty
eight
damn
minute mile
good.
ain't bad. Yeah, and these guys are
The lazy ones of the bunch. Yeah.
the lazy fat bodies, and they're running 8-minute miles, and I'm in so it's 8-minute, 7-minute, 6-minute. So I'm in the 6-minute mile group, and I don't want the stigma, and I don't want to fall behind, and I'm literally limping on 6-minute mile
Yeah.
runs, like limping, with my foot just trashed, and I remember the only person I actually cared about me was Lieutenant Barrow, brand new like butter bar, and he was running behind me and mentioned stuff. He's like, "Aller, why are you running so funny?" I'm like, my foot hurts.
Mhm.
My foot hurts, healthy. My foot hurts, sir. Whatever I said to him, and it's like on the run, and he like made me go to sick call, and that was like after a week of running like that, and he was like, uh, you know, "You're going to sick call tomorrow," or whatever it did, and I did. I
Yeah.
went, and that's the only reason why it's documented is because he told me, a lieutenant told me to go to sick
Yeah.
call, and I
And you're,
listened to him.
sir, whatever you say.
One of the rare times, one of the rare times I ever listened to a second lieutenant.
Second
But
lieutenant. All right.
yeah. But so and then my arm was one of those things where it was like, I could barely use it,
Mhm.
and so I thought maybe I did something so bad that it needs to be surgically repaired
Mhm.
because I could barely use it. And I went and they were like, "Hey, yeah, and unless it separates completely, there's nothing we do for, take Motrin or water. Like,
Typical
okay.
military fix.
Yeah. And then the other one was, I had to go to the ER. So I went to the ER for that one. And when I compacted my lower vertebrae, and I was like, well, that, obviously that one's documented too.
Yeah.
But the ones that I didn't know about were like, tinnitus. And that's my biggest pet peeve is like, I don't know how many times live fire exercises, whatever, that I didn't have hearing protection in, or something kicked off and I didn't have a hearing protection in, or we just didn't wear it just because. And, now like tinnitus is just a everyday part of my life. And, it's
It
bad.
is.
I mean, it's bad.
It drives you crazy sometimes.
And as I've gotten older, that's what's worried me. I was like, man, it is such a decimal of ring in my head nonstop. Even now while I talk to you,
Yeah.
uh, I feel like I talk probably louder than I normally would
Percent.
because I'm like compensating to talk over my own tinnitus.
Yeah, it's hard to hear past it.
And yes, and but they denied me my claim. And it's just maddening. It's like the thing that I live with day in and day out that like is just so annoying. They deny, but good on them. At least everything else that was documented is been claimed. But yeah, man. So besides the pity party for myself here, yeah, I've had to compensate. Bless you.
Thank you.
I've had to compensate. I try to do because I've been back to the doctor since for my arm. I tried to re-up it and get it. I didn't. That's the other thing is like find people that know all the ins and outs of the VA because I've never done it to get money. I never did it to get money. It came to a point where I couldn't sleep through the night because of my back, because of my arm, or because of my foot, or I couldn't. It'd flare up. My foot would flare up. I couldn't walk right again. And it just came to the point where people were like, hey, you can go get like other service members are like, why don't you go get paid for that? And I'm like, I don't want to get paid for it. But then it came to the point where I'm like, I'm going to live the rest of my good years of my life in pain or bothered by this. And, yeah, I do want to get compensated for it. But it took me a long time because I think when you're younger, you're just like, you know what, I'm a badass,
A lot
and
of pride in there.
that's for the weak
Yeah.
and your ego and everything else. But then it came to the point where I'm like, dude, like this is really affecting my life, and I'm I am going to try to get compensation for it. So that's one of the things is getting with people that know the ins and outs of the VA, because I know a lot of people that are 100% disabled, and those are probably the best people to talk to. Being in law enforcement, I work with a lot of veterans, and that was, with one of the things is that I do run into some people that are 100% disabled, and, getting in touch with them and getting to know the ins and outs and the right people to talk to get you the help that you need. So, I tried to go back and re-up my arm because my arm is trashed. Like out of anything, I would say my back and my arm are the most trashed thing that I live with day in and day out. My neck, I don't know if it's just normal wear and tear or what, but my neck's trashed, and so I like literally just your workouts. My workouts have changed to like as far as how you work out, uh, and how you got to limit certain things, and you can't do certain things anymore. But
You get those
but not
hobbies, you get those workouts, and that's something that a lot of guys have trouble with when they get out, is staying in shape. And that just compounds on that. Not being
yeah
able to work out like you used to, not being able to be as intense as you
yeah
used to. And it's really hard
right.
to stay in
And
shape after you have something happen like that.
yep. And the main thing, and so I'm 44. I was issued the green ID, the little green ID. So I I'm up there. I'm up there in years. I got a lot of wear and tear. I got a lot of miles on me. But I still wake up. I still go to the gym, and I still do, whatever I have to do to accommodate my injuries, whatever I have to do to still be functional, because that's the main thing is like, don't use it as an excuse to stop doing shit. Figure out what you figure out what you can do and do that.
Yeah. And if that is,
So
if
like,
it's, oh, I can't do this specific exercise anymore, or I can't do this specific movement anymore, cool, go with that. But if it's, I need surgery for this, that's where getting that VA disability comes in. And, people obviously look a lot at the VA disability as getting money. Well, really what it is you get this documented or you get this documented. And then if this fucks up so bad that you can't, go ride dirt bikes because it's just, killing you. If this is documented, you go get it fixed, and it's free. It's free surgery. Like that is, and that's a big part, I just had shoulder surgery 2 months ago. That probably would have cost me $30,000 or $40,000 to get that surgery. And I didn't have to pay for it. And now I get to go back to doing the exercises that I enjoy doing chest and, shoulder workouts. And it's taken some of that load off by doing that. So that's another important thing with guys that are only 20, 30, 40% is, yeah, a lot of people are only in the lower percentage range when they really should be in the higher, 50, 60, 70, 80 even. And sometimes even 100. I've known guys that are at 20% that they go 2 weeks out of work because their body hurts so much they can't get out of bed. And I'm like, brother, you need to go document this at the VA. I got a guy that I'm going to talk to about the same thing we're talking about that helps veterans get their disability higher. So there's resources out there. If anybody needs to talk to anybody, I know my way around, and I have a lot of resources that I can pull from to help people get higher disability. But it's not always about the money. The money's nice. It's nice to get compensated for using and abusing your body. But it is very nice having that care there, albeit slow care, but care nonetheless.
Yeah. And and hopefully that will change with time. But I can't remember what veteran group I was talking to, but the guy had told me, he's like, look, the money's set aside it's like allocated. It's all there. That
was me. Yeah.
Was that you? Yeah. Because I've had so many different conversations about this. Like it's there, and whether they're going to use it on you or others. Yeah.
Bullshit.
Or whatever side project they tried to do, this is the way to do it. So it's like, that made me feel a lot better too.
You're not stealing any disability money from any other veteran. A lot of guys get out, because I said the same thing when I got out. I was like, well, I don't want to file a claim because I'm worried I'm going to take disability for somebody who really needs it.
Exactly.
That's not the case. Like I told you, they set aside that money for every single veteran, whether they get their disability or not, because a lot of the times what happens is guys go 20, 15, 10 years until they put in their disability. And they go, hey, look, here's all my paperwork from the military. I didn't think I needed it then, but I am 45 years old and I can't work. And then they have to back pay those guys 20 years worth of back pay. So they set it aside for you, whether you use it or not. Definitely get it if you can.
Yep. And I think, was it 20 years is when you're completely established?
Yeah.
And like they can't. And what's crazy is, I didn't even know it, but when someone talked some sense to me, is like, hey, you're having all these issues, why don't you go try to get it re-upped? I was like, I didn't know you could do that.
You can have them boost it.
Yeah. And so when I went into my VA rep, and they're like, oh yeah, you're 20 years in right now. So it's like, time flies, man. And so yeah, I've already been 20 years into my 30% claim.
And now you'll be 30% for forever. They can't ever take that away from you.
Yes. Yeah. So that was a nice little knowing that, they can't pull any crap on you, but yeah.
So, back a little bit to the like social stigma of small disabilities. And even when you're in the military, that's another big thing you brought up was, when you're in the military, the Marine Corps does it a lot too. I can't tell you how many times I just didn't go because it wasn't worth getting called a bitch, getting told I was weak, or getting kicked off my deployment. That was my big thing. Pre-deployment workups. I was like, bro, I could lose my leg. I could get shot. I could get blown up in the feet, doing a live fire range. Whatever happens, there's not a chance I'm going into medical to get myself kicked off this deployment. Because that's what I joined for, like my whole goal was that deployment. And so that entire year and a half of the workups, to get ready to leave, I didn't talk about anything, no.
Yeah.
We go on rucks and I roll my ankle. It's like, you better get some duct tape and some ace bandage, boy,
Yeah.
keep going,
Yeah.
So something for the guys that, if anybody that watches this is still in, just at minimum, do what I did and document everything when you get back from deployment. Do your thing that is your driving goal. If you're getting out, if you're going to do that thing and then get out after, as soon as you get home, document. That's what helped me get to my 100%. And I would definitely recommend to every veteran to document, or to every active duty document. And then to the veterans, have you had any personal experience with any of the, because you work with a lot of guys that are disabled and that have Purple Hearts, even Medal of Honors recipients. Have they ever, said anything about guys that have smaller disabilities, like they're looking down on anybody? Or do you think that they would agree with us,
Yeah, I'd imagine they'd feel wholeheartedly that if you're hurt, you're hurt. Service connected. Go take care of yourself. It's stupid not to. It's, and that's the thing, is that I think it comes with age, is that you have to understand that we're not here long. And you got to take care of yourself, and anything that's service connected, get the services that you can get from that connected.
Yeah, whatever you can get from it, get it.
Whatever you can get, because it's going to come out of your pocket if you don't.
Exactly. It's going to come out of your pocket or out of your body.
It's stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. So, I was pretty bullheaded about it a lot. And then, because you just, you have people you look up to, and, if those people are talking, all kinds of shit about the C group people and the fat bodies and the sick call rangers, you do not want to be in that category.
No, you don't want to be lumped in with that. And it makes it very hard for you to seek help, even when because obviously both of us being in the military, there are guys who take advantage of getting out of runs or, getting out of hikes or whatever. But for 80-90% of guys, they would rather hurt themselves more than be included into that little 2 to 5% group.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, we'd be on a field problem or an op, and somebody went down, rolled their ankle, and got out of the op. Sometimes, like the 72 hours, the 3-day ops, and it's raining and you're soaking wet, and you're like 2 days into it, and you've slept 4 hours, and you hate life. But if I go down then all my gear has to be separated, and they have to carry my shit.
Somebody's got to take care of it.
Yeah, and I've seen people do it, and we, if you could kill them with just a look, you would do it. And it's like, great, now you're taking this dude's gear because they're done. They're putting a fork in it. But yeah, there's a difference between those
100%.
people and the people that legitimately are like, will push through anything and literally like make things worse on themselves to
complete the mission,
get away from that. Yeah. And to stay away from that stigma, and it still happens. I mean, it's like being in law enforcement, and when, you don't want to get hurt in law enforcement.
Yeah, you don't want to be
because
benched.
it's the same. It's the same stigma, man. Like, you're like, now you're on the desk and you're taking like reports and, all the paper calls, and, you do not want to be that guy. So it's, law enforcement and the military is very similar in a lot of different ways.
And I'm sure you see that a lot in guys, you got both sides of the coin there. And because I feel like law enforcement is a lot bigger of a group of people than the military, like numbers wise and diversity wise. I feel like obviously there's a lot more or cops and sheriff's deputies, and you have all the different departments. And I feel like there's a lot more spread on types and personality types there. So I'm sure you've seen, military experience and drawn similarities between being an officer. But do you think that the guys that do need help in your line of work do the same thing as the guys in the military? You think that they push it off and don't deal with it when they should?
Very, very similar. It's very similar, if not exactly the same. And maybe that's because, there is a high number of veterans in law enforcement, but yeah, I found myself like telling guys, "Hey, what happened?" Oh, I'm like, document it. And like, and then, when I became a supervisor, it was like, you don't have a choice. I'm documenting it. We're getting this taken care of. We'll fill out the appropriate forms. Like, because I know what it's like. I know that a lot of it is that ego, that pride. I'm not hurt, but well, what if a year from now, this is really causing you problems?
Yeah.
It needs to be documented. So it's like taking care of the people in your line of work and making sure that, you're like creating an environment for people to like, hey, something's wrong. Like, let's take care of it.
I'd rather
like,
you take care of it now and get it
Yes.
dealt with than be 75, 60% for the next 2 years until it really breaks.
Because that's what you do when you truly care about people, is you take care of
Exactly.
them. So that, and, hopefully, when I'm gone, because, you can't do your job forever, and the people that, fill in your role will also do that for the next go around. So you want to create that environment for people that, like, it's okay that you get hurt, because I know that, several times in my law enforcement career, I messed myself up. I hurt myself, and it. I've broken my hand. I've fallen down a lot. I've hurt myself. I was out. The only time where I had to miss work is when I broke my hand.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'll limp, or the reoccurring thing I have with my arm, it's affected me during my in my duties. Like, it is, when it's flared up, it's weak, and I might have to do things differently because of that. So it's important, man. It's going to affect you the rest of your life, and you just got to bite the bullet.
Document it, fix it.
Ego and, yeah, ego and pride are the worst.
They're the
things.
killers of men, is what they are.
They are,
because,
man.
like you're saying, like, stay with your arm. You got that figured out. Can you imagine if you got that figured out 15 years ago, when you weren't, when you were more hard-headed, and you're like, you're like, we'll deal with it later. Can you imagine how much, because obviously being in law enforcement, you have an injury to your arm or to your leg or whatever that might not be so bad that you can't just skate by in the office when you're going out to a call. But, you come up to a window and that's running through your head. Okay, my left knee is fucked up right now.
Yeah,
I got to calculate what's going to happen here. Because if this guy books it or, whatever, you got to take that into account. So the sooner you take care of it, the less it's going to mess with your job, and the less it's going to mess with your mind.
Yeah. And it's honestly, I was So I'm in the middle of a use of force with another officer, and this guy's intoxicated, and he's going to be taken into custody, and he's fighting with us. And the other officer I'm with, is 100% disabled veteran as well. And and we're fighting with this guy, and we're having a conversation while we're fighting the guy. I'm like, hey, my arm is messed up. And he's like, my arm's messed up too.
So you guys are both like, all right, you use your left one, I'll use my right one.
Yeah. So we're literally having this conversation while we're fighting this guy of what's messed up on our body and what we can't use.
What you can and can't do, pretty much.
And adapting to the situation and having to use different tools because of our injuries that are flared up at the time. So yeah, man, it's just kind of, you look back and it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think another thing, I'm not sure how much you see maybe fresher guys that are new to law enforcement. Obviously, I see a lot more of the non-military personnel in my work line being an electrician than you see in law enforcement. A lot of law enforcement is obviously prior enlisted. But do you ever notice that, like, I hate to use the term civilians because civilians get upset about that sometimes. But, people that weren't in the military, aren't in law enforcement or first responding jobs. Do you notice that they kind of glaze over smaller disabilities?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen a lot. I mean, it's probably not front and center as a lot of things, but yeah, there is probably that civilian stigma where, if you're not missing limbs, or if you haven't been shot or blown up, that you're whatever else you're suffering from is pretty insignificant. And yeah, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, but only you and I can say that.
Exactly.
Well, only other veterans can say that. Civilians can really, their opinions don't mean much when it comes to the, the injuries and stuff like that. But
going through it is, you could talk about it all day, but being about it and going through it is a whole different world.
Yeah.
Not that their opinions are bullshit, but a lot of the times they kind of are.
Yeah, and I think a majority of the time it's other, and I'm just going to say it, like, I think it's men. It's men that didn't join and that are probably, I don't know if they're
insecure,
jealous, upset about their own life decisions. Because every guy that's honest will say, that hasn't joined the military, will say, I wish I joined.
100%.
And I've had tons of conversations with guys in their 30s or 40s, 20s that say, my biggest regret is not joining the military. And I've never had a conversation with somebody where it's been the other way around, where they're like, I wish I never would have joined the military. And if it did happen, they might have some mental health issue, or
something a little
deeper,
mad at
the world
than just the military.
Yeah, and they're mad at the world, and there's probably nothing I'll be able to change their opinion about that.
Being in the trades,
but
I notice it a little bit more, obviously, because I work with guys that are not in that world, and it does help with even guys that are civilians before, non-veterans that join law enforcement or any first responders. That group is kind of very military style thinking. They're pretty similar in the way that they think. And in my line of work, I think I see it maybe a little bit more. It's a little bit more prevalent, maybe. I just noticed that, being a 28-year-old guy, 29-year-old guy,
such a youngster.
Yeah. And that's what I notice a lot is, I get a guy that's been doing a trade for 20 years or 15 years. And, I have a bad day with my shoulder before I got my surgery. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I can, work with my hand above my head for the next 6 hours, And they're like, oh, you're just a child. You got soft hands, boy, And I'm like, all right, I get that. I see where you're coming from, but also it's different, you know. It's not that I'm better than anybody. It's not that I've done more than anybody. I don't ever want to come across like that. I don't ever want to come across
Yeah.
as, patting myself on the back. But
Yeah.
I am
No.
100% disabled for a reason, you know. And so
Yeah.
I noticed that
Uh,
they kind of downplay because I don't have any bullet holes in me and I don't have any
yeah.
missing limbs. It's kind of
Yeah.
downplayed.
Yeah.
And I
It's that. Yeah. It's that you just bring it all back to that stigma, and I think another stigma is in law enforcement, a thing that's cut right down the middle with law enforcement and military service is the mental health aspect of the toll of everything that, the dirty word of suicide, and the people that commit suicide, whether that be by their own hand or by a reckless lifestyle that leads them to death. um and that's another thing is like we got to do a better job of is that it's okay to not be okay.
100%.
And it's a cliche, cheesy thing to say, but straight up, I would rather wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to my phone ringing, uh, to help a friend out, whether I knew them or I don't, um, and and help them through whatever they're going through in that part of their life, rather than their family. They don't, like I said, I don't even have to know them personally. Um, and I think, in all honesty, uh, I think it's better sometimes to reach out to people that in the veteran community that you don't know,
It's
because
easier sometimes
I would think so. And also it's easier for me to give it to you
yeah,
straight.
from
And,
both sides.
and that's what, yeah. And a lot of people, um, over the years don't come to me for things because they know, you know, uh, Jocko has that funny story where like the guy's kind of complaining to Jocko about, I didn't get this, I didn't get that. And Jocko's like, you know what, I'm gonna, or something to the effect of, I know what you're gonna say, Jocko, you're gonna say
Yeah.
good. And he's like, right,
Yeah.
good. And I think a lot of people know that about me, is that if they come to me, they are going to get the most honest
Real deal,
and
raw version.
direct. I don't find it as a fault of mine. I'm very direct and I don't beat around the bush. We're on this earth a very short time. So it's like, if there's a problem and I see the glaring obvious problem, whatever it is, I'm going to tell them, whether it be like, hey, I'm having a difficult time at home, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, oh, well, stop fucking around on your wife. Like that, that right there will alleviate a lot of
Or quit
problems.
drinking, or, quit
Yeah.
quit
It's
spending
like,
all your money on
there's,
coke,
yeah, exactly. So there's all these things, law enforcement, obviously, I don't deal with a lot of things, or if not ever, with the drug issue
Yeah.
thing, but because that's automatic, like, hey,
Yeah, you're
dude, like
done.
you're done. And that crosses a line. But in my profession, the guys have a lot. It could be drinking, it could be the stress of the job, it could be their infidelity, things of that nature. And it's like, okay, now if you're not going to be faithful to your family, then you need to stop the facade of the marriage
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah, just move
And
along and go your separate ways.
you're going to be a dog, go be a dog and leave your family out of it, and choose being a dog over your family. And, that is not a popular answer. That is not a popular response, but it's like, that's, that's what if I was in that boat, I don't want somebody telling me, oh, hey, yeah, this job causes you to, it can cause problems and cause you to be
Yeah.
unfaithful. Well, no, no, my actions directly cause me to be
Yeah. It's what's up
unfaithful,
here.
and there's no excuse for it. So, yeah, and unfortunately, I've dealt with, over the years, tons of military vets that are suicidal, and I deal with a lot of veterans on their worst
Yeah.
days.
You see a lot of
You
them
know,
on their worst
I,
days.
Oh man, yeah, I've had my fingers inside of them, tourniquets on them, on their worst days, and it's like, uh, over my career, I make sure that if I can be the one making the phone call to the guy inside the house with the revolver to his head or whatever it is, I want to be that
Yeah.
guy, because I sure as hell don't want to be the guy, you
To
know,
his parents or
um,
his
in,
family.
investigating the
Yeah.
suicide. I want them outside hugging me, getting the help they need, getting them the resources that they need, because ultimately you serve this country. Like, I love
Yeah.
you right out
Yeah.
of the gate. Like, I have a respect and love for you that is unmatched by anybody else.
100%.
Like, you're if you serve this country, I love you and respect you automatically. You might be a total turd, but hey, I have the love and respect that you actually sacrificed and gave something more, you know, uh, more than
Yeah.
yourself,
And more than
you
you
know,
had to.
and yeah. So, and all the other problems we could work on later, but first and foremost, I love you for serving your country and loving it like I love it, and no other person that walks the streets of this country knows like what other veterans know, what they went through and the sacrifices they made. It's a lot of
Yeah.
sacrifice.
I mean, and
And so,
everybody's road is different. Everybody's walk is different. And
yeah,
even guys that I served with have different, troubles with things, things that I didn't have trouble with, they might have had trouble with, and things that they thought were super easy breezy, didn't even have a second thought about, still bother me to this day. And I think, some, maybe not a lot, maybe not all of it, but I think a decent amount of some of the depression and the suicide tendencies come from what we're talking about here today is, because I went through it back when I was in a dark place and I was having a rough time transitioning out of the military and just trying to figure out how to be a human again. I started picking up old hobbies. I'd go snowboarding and,
yeah,
I went snowboarding and I took one too many spills on the bunny hill, because I was still a fresh boy on the snowboard.
yeah,
And I was calling out of work for 2 or 3 days because I was just so hurt.
yeah,
And that's hard on a young guy getting out of the military,
yeah,
especially after being like a lot of guys are in the military, so gung ho and kill and get the mission done. And it's hard to like, oh crap, dude, like I can't do that anymore. And that weighs on
yeah,
you whether you realize it or not. And to be able to talk to other veterans about it that can empathize with you and sympathize with you is very helpful. And I think that would help a lot with the depression on that front at a minimum.
yeah. I'll tell you right now, alcohol it's killed more of my friends and than anything, and veterans. So it's like, if you can if you're already having a hard time, just out alcohol and you'll make it worse. So like, I'd probably say 100% of suicidal veterans that I deal with are
Yeah.
drunk. They're under the influence of alcohol. And they'll do things on alcohol. Everybody will. Every human being, any human being that's suffering is, you add alcohol and it just makes it worse. But it does not mix well with veterans that are going through hard times, and it does not mix well with law enforcement going through hard times. So that would be the biggest thing too, is kind of like, if your friends are drinking a lot, that's probably a good sign that they're dealing with some other deep-seated issues. And even if you got to be the asshole and say, hey, like,
Sometimes it's what it
let's
takes.
not let's not go out drinking tonight. Like, let's figure out what's going on with you, dude. Like, I love you and I'm gonna keep you here. And like I said, it's better to do that than go to their funeral.
100%. When I very first got out, I went from drinking a 30 rack between two guys almost every night, and more on the weekends. This was, middle of the week, Tuesday, got PT at 4:30 in the morning, 15 beers
Oh
a
yeah.
night,
You just learn
Yeah,
to
it's
drink
just, and it
and
becomes
run
second
it off
hand.
in the
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah. You take a 6 mile run down the beach. You're not hungover when you get done. I mean, you might feel like dog shit, but you're not hungover
Yeah.
anymore. And
Yeah.
so you get out, and it's not the same. You can't do that whether you want to or not. I fought so long and hard to try to be able to do that still. And I'm over 14 months sober now. And that is one of the biggest things that has helped me not be depressed. Now, I still get depressed. Andrew Tate kind of talks about it. I'm not a huge hater, but
Yeah.
he talked about, depression is not real. And when you really look into what he says, is he's saying he chooses not to believe in it. And when you're under the influence of anything, you don't really have the brain power to do that. And to, because at this point, if I'm sad and I'm alone in the house and I'm depressed, I can just go, wait a second, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I sad
Yeah.
right now? And I can actively change it. But back to the alcohol, when I first got out, I was with a woman and we were struggling, and alcohol didn't help. I wasn't seeking help because I was too proud to
Yeah.
go to a therapist. I was too proud to talk to anybody. And I had some other things going on also, but I was almost a statistic. I was very close to being a statistic, and I am very lucky that I wasn't. And I'm very grateful that, I think God helped me a lot that day. And the police officer that showed up to help out was a Marine Corps veteran, actually. And he was very helpful. But I totally 100% agree that alcohol is one of the biggest contributing factors to veteran suicides,
Yeah.
hands down.
And yep. And it's probably the biggest contributor to law enforcement suicides
Yeah,
as
I'm
well.
sure it's very
I mean,
similar with you guys.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's terrible.
It is.
I mean, it's a great recreational thing to do, and go on a float and have a couple beers, or have a barbecue and have a couple beers. But once you cross that line and it becomes your way of life, and you are literally getting drunk every day, nothing good's gonna, I mean, yeah, I mean, we go on a whole new tangent about alcohol and the abuse of alcohol. I mean, it's
It is.
terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
It's very hard on your body. And that's another thing I noticed after quitting was I felt better. You know, muscle wise, I wasn't as tight. Didn't have headaches anymore, helped me wake up earlier. So that can definitely help with if somebody is feeling like they cannot perform physically like they used to. Not drinking as much or not drinking at all can help a ton with that because you're more hydrated, you're healthier. And I
Absolutely everything improves when you stop drinking.
yeah, it
Like
does.
your brain function,
Yeah.
everything. I'm a very occasional drinker now, and I'm more, as I got older. I got and we living in Southern Oregon. I got into wine.
Yeah. Very easy to do around here.
So so typically now, that I don't drink frequently. If I have a literal 8-ounce glass of wine, I can feel it immediately. I can feel it immediately in my body. I can feel it immediately, and how I talk. I'm more
A little
giggly. It's
loosened
like,
up.
and that's
Yeah.
that's one drink. But back in my adolescence, in my early 20s, I wasn't paying attention to that. And I'm doing that times
Yeah.
6,
You were
times
chasing
8.
it. Chasing it.
Yeah, and I mean, so it's crazy that the older you get, the wiser you get, and the main thing is like, I want people to get older and wiser. I want them
Yeah.
to be able
We want them to make it there.
to get yeah, to get in their 40s and see their grandkids and all that good. Like, I want all these people to not steal, you know, themselves away from their family members that truly do love them. And that's the biggest thing is like what I've seen over the years is just the heartache and the hurt that when you drink and take your life, what that causes, the aftermath. Like, they're gone. They don't get to see that. They don't get to see that, but I do.
Yeah.
You know, and
All their friends, their
their
family.
kids, their kids do, their families do, and it's absolutely
It
terrible.
is.
And it's not worth it. So it's it's a problem. I don't know if it's ever going to go away. I know we've I think over the last like decade have done a better job of talking about it. It used to kind of just be such a stigma that, you know, like if in law enforcement, man, if you talked about back in the
Oh
day,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, I've been a cop for 20 years. I was kind of laughing about this the other day. I was a cop before iPhones were invented. Okay. So like I was a cop before, you know, body cameras and all that stuff. Like, uh, before every car had an in-car computer. Like, that's how long I've been
Yeah.
a cop. And back then, if you mention a word or
Depression,
you were
anxiety. Yeah. Any
having,
of that.
oh, dude, they'd probably
Yeah.
fire you,
Yeah. Because you're
you
at
know,
that point, they treated it like a liability. And that's what a
liability.
lot of these guys have
So,
ingrained in their brain.
yeah, exactly. And so we've come a long way to where now people are like, okay, I can get help. Uh, and I need this help. And the agency's very accommodating and should be understanding that, you know, the cumulative stress of a guy that did a 6 month multiple deployment, you know, Marine Corps guys, you do 6 months,
9.
right? 9. And then your Army guys that do the year long. And then but it's multiple, and it's a year because, you know, there's in
Yeah.
processing,
All
all
that
that stuff.
junk
But
in between.
the, the, uh, the, these guys are doing it day in and day out, multiple tours. And then you got the guys in law enforcement that are doing it day in and day out, and they do the 20 years.
Yeah.
That accumulative stress that you don't know is just literally, it's like, you know, you compare it to a rucksack. You know, yeah, my body can carry 80 pounds and I can sustain that for 24 miles, but now you're adding more weight to it, you know, and then you're adding, you know, physical problems that I may have to it. And it just becomes this weight that is so hard to carry that you're like, you're dragging it. You know, you're dragging it, and then you got to
You're
have other
barely
people
making
help
it
drag
by.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is what happens to people in the veteran community and law enforcement community. It gets to the point where it's like it it is literally just bogging you down, and you have to figure out ways to deal with it and make sure that if it is coming to a point where it's affecting you at your job or whatever, that you're actually going to the right people
Seek help.
that you
Yep.
trust. And obviously the people that you trust, man, you got to go to the people that genuinely care about you, that, you know, you don't want to go to the people that are going to start spreading rumors and everything. So just make sure you identify those people in your agency or in the veteran community or, uh, in your unit,
Yeah. Yeah. Even for
and
active duty.
go to
Yeah.
those people and make sure that, you know, nobody wants to get on the blowhorn and announce those things. But so identifying those people, like I said, I don't know how many people this will reach, but
Usually a decent amount.
go, yeah, go on my site, my phone number, my email's listed, and even if you're just not having a problem, you know, like I said, I'll answer my phone anytime, and I'll tell you, you're being a boner. You need to fix these things, and I'm going to give you tough love, and because I want to keep you around. And if you don't want to hear it, then call somebody else. But if you want the cold hard slap you in the face, this is what you need to do, no exceptions, then call me, because I'll have no problem telling you that, because that's what I would expect out of anybody. And if it doesn't have to do with, you having trouble and you're just trying to break into law enforcement and you don't know how to properly go to an oral board or fill out a resume to correlate your military experience to law enforcement and how to better articulate that, call me, email me. I'll go over your bio, I'll go over your resume, like whatever it takes, because I want to see other veterans in the law enforcement community, and I want to help them, because I've struggled through that, where it's like, you go to your oral board, or you go to your interview, and they want to talk to you. They ask you certain questions. You're like, me blow stuff up, me kick door, and me shoot gun good. Like it just, you can't. It doesn't work.
You have to be able to articulate.
And the guys, yeah. And if you're going in there and you're like, I stacked bodies and all this other stuff,
They'd be like, yeah, okay, buddy.
It's just not. It's not going to work. So you got to figure out ways to articulate and really sell yourself nowadays, and separate yourself from the crowd of people in law enforcement. And man, now more than ever, if you're wanting to get in law enforcement, if I see you in person, I'll give you a big hug, because I don't know if I was 19 again, the climate of law enforcement and even the military, like
it's a whole different world right now.
Yeah. I mean, I talked my kid out of not going into the Marines, Air Force, Navy, Army. I was like, you should go in the Coast Guard, because of who the president was in office. And it was like, I don't,
that's real world stuff right there.
I have so much love for the veterans and the law enforcement community, and the people that want to be veterans, the people that are veterans, and the people that want to be in law enforcement. I have so much love for them, because I'm like, you're literally signing on for a job that they want to kick you in the nuts, they want to kill you, they want to spit in your face, and you ain't going to get no love, but you still want to do it. And it's a calling. So that's what I was saying, man. I love them all.
I agree. I am very grateful and thankful for the men and women that have come before me, after me, and who protect us here and at home. I've had quite a few necessities for calling 911 around here, because, hey, I could take care of it myself, and really just. But is that really a good idea?
Don't do that.
So I've had quite a few times where I have needed the help of local law enforcement here, and I'm very thankful for everything they do. I have a lot of friends at this point that are local law enforcement, and I 100% agree. I might not know the whole world of law enforcement, but being around guys like you and guys like my buddies that are in it, I have quite an understanding of it, and I can draw on a lot of the similarities from the military. So if any of those law enforcement or first responders, even, I have a lot of first responders friends that I kind of understand how that world works too. Any of you guys need anything, Quint already said you can reach out to him, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me with anything you guys have. Question-wise, I can help build resumes for the trades, more geared towards the trades. I've helped a couple buddies from the Marine Corps do that, and I'm really glad you do that too. It's an awesome thing to be able to help somebody build that resume up and get them a good job.
It's honestly an honor. Like,
it's awesome.
Hey, you're trusting me to help you out, and that's my goal. Your goal is my goal, and I want to.
We want to get you a good job. We want to get you disability, and we want to get you a damn good mental health state. All right. I think we did good. I really appreciate you talking with me about all this. And like I said, anybody that wants to reach out, feel free anytime. My Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube, whatever. reach out to us, lean on your fellow veterans. You know, just remember, you're not a burden. We all love you, and we are all grateful that you're here. And don't let these disabilities be your defining characteristic. For a little bit there, when I first got out, I let it be my defining characteristics. I quit going to the gym and doing all that. So I know it's hard not to, because sometimes some days are really rough, but we got to be able to push, and we got to be able to get better is really the goal here, is get you better, get you healthy, and keep on keeping on doing the things you love.
Yep. Amen.
Amen,
Dude.
brother. Thank you so much for your time. And we're going to sign out. And
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'm very grateful for your help, man. Thank you. Night.